An action-packed Monday for the Texans. Right on the heels of the NFL Scouting Combine, Texans general manager Nick Caserio shakes things up, reshapes the offensive backfield, trading for David Montgomery and adding a very physical running back, and that's something that I felt like the Texans were missing last season. The downhill, punishing, bruising presence of Joe Mixon because of Joe's career-threatening foot injury that is tough, complicated, and has not resolved and had off-season surgery. So he replaces Mixon, and now Woody Marks becomes RB2, a complimentary back. I think one of the biggest takeaways that the Texans were able to glean from the NFL Scouting Combine, for those asking why? Well, why Montgomery? Why not wait? Why not wait for the free agency signing period? My understanding is, per sources, they were able to ascertain just how expensive it would be for a Kenneth Walker III, the Super Bowl MVP. Like I said before, this could be $14 million average per year. Too rich for their blood. So they pivot. And the same thing, it would have been expensive for Travis Etienne Jr., and it would have been pretty expensive for Rico Dowdle. So, well, what about the Montgomery contract? So he's due a non-guaranteed $5.49 million base salary, but $1.75 million of the 2026 salary will become fully guaranteed. It's guaranteed for injury currently. Fully guaranteed meaning for skill, injury, salary cap. Third day of the league year. When that happens, the Texans are probably already going to be in the process, I'm told, of working on the deal. Don't have to do it right now. He's under contract for a couple of years. So what are you getting in Montgomery? And before we get into the Titus Howard trade, I spoke to Titus exclusively. Had a great telephone interview with Titus that is up at KPRC2, www.click2houston.com. Not surprised by the move, not mad about the move. He says, I ain't mad. And he got a great contract. 3 years, $63 million, $43 million of it guaranteed, $21 million average, $15 million average in new money. So a strong deal. And the Texans, they just traded their best offensive lineman away for the second year in a row after trading five-time Pro Bowl left tackle Laramie Tunsil. And we'll get into the plan of the offensive line, but I think, obviously, we want to hammer home more about David Montgomery. They paid a lot for Montgomery in terms of the draft capital. Some wondering, is it too much? They did have a competitor. The Denver Broncos were interested. So they unload former second-round pick, Juice Scruggs, offensive guard, and center that had not panned out. He had never established himself as a long-term starter. He got chances. He had opportunities. He was never able to fully reach his potential. Maybe he will with the Detroit Lions. That's fine. It's the fourth-round pick, though, and a seventh-rounder thrown in. So this move had been in the works for a while. They were trying to keep it under wraps, and then Detroit leaks it out, and of course, get information, get the confirmation of everything. So why did he want out of Detroit? Because he had become second fiddle to Sonic. It was called Sonic and Knuckles. He's Knuckles because he's the bruiser. He's a tough guy. 5'11", 230 pounds. 716 yards, 8 touchdowns last season, working behind Jahmyr Gibbs. He wanted to be traded to have an expanded role. So the reduced workload for Montgomery, 158 carries. He's rushed for 6,115 career yards, 59 touchdowns. He's been productive everywhere. Last 1,000-yard season was his first year in Detroit, 1,015 yards, 13 touchdowns. Last year, 2 years ago, 775 yards, 12 touchdowns. And he's part of a great, great tandem. And we'll talk again in a second.
Have you been in an accident? If you have, you deserve a dedicated legal team that will fight for you. At PM Law Firm, we fight and we win to get you the compensation you deserve.
Worried about the cost? Don't be. Our consultations are free. We don't get paid until you get paid. Contact me, John, or anyone here at the PM Law Firm today to get your case started. 281-968-9529.
Right, and more about David Montgomery, the Texans' new RB1, Mr. Knuckles. Or what was that old Naughty by Nature song? Guard your grill, knuckle up. A tough guy. Iowa State, Chicago Bears, played his entire career up in the black and blue division, the NFC North. Coming from Detroit, you can have an affinity for the toughness. Just ask some of the Texans players. He's trucked these guys before. Remember the game that the Texans lost and David Montgomery running through guys. So there's some things to like about it. There's some things also, with the value to wonder about when you look at what they gave up. And I think that, just thinking about value, but the biggest thing is they got it done. They needed some help, and it's a positive trade, obviously, for Detroit in terms of assets, but the Texans absolutely needed a running back, and you look at what he did in 3 years in Detroit, a 3-year total of 2,506 yards, 33 touchdowns. So former third-round pick of the Bears, signed with Detroit in 2023, and from everything I've heard about him, a very high-character guy. And so let's look at how he stacks up since 2019. He's one of 5 players to rush for 6,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. He's in some elite company. Derrick Henry, 10,725 yards and 100 touchdown runs. Josh Jacobs, 7,803 yards, 74 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, 7,598 yards, 69 touchdowns. More rushing yards than Christian McCaffrey, 6,115 yards and 59 touchdown runs. And McCaffrey, 6,056 yards, 53 touchdowns. So definitely in good company. And like I said, he had gotten unhappy with his role. So it was time for him to leave the Detroit Lions and have this new path. But last year, he's definitely well preserved. He played in every game, but he had a career low 158 runs, 182 touches. He played every game. And the first 2 seasons, he averaged 14.4 rushes per game and 16.3 touches per game, because he's also a good wide receiver. Receiver out of the backfield, rather. So in terms of contract, like I said, about the guarantees, but last year, 24 catches, 192 yards, 29 targets, 231 career catches for 1,809 yards, 4 touchdowns. As the aforementioned Joe Mixon, they are expected to move on, and he had off-season surgery and told he and other Houston reporters that attended the NFL scouting combine what happened. And like I said, what wound up happening with this, a real impetus, I'm told, for this move. The high-end market, as he explored, and that's what he reported, he would explore it. He dipped his toe in the water and thought it was way too expensive. Nick Caserio, that is. So moving on, that made sense for the Texans, and obviously this leaves them with major offensive line needs, but I'm told that they plan to revamp the line, adding several new offensive linemen to this group that no longer includes, they traded their best offensive lineman, in my opinion, for the second consecutive year. Titus Howard, while he wasn't a Pro Bowler, he was effective. He was versatile. He was tough. And he could move people. And he's someone that you certainly wanted to be a part of it, ideally. His contract, it was due for a redo. And rather than extending, they move on. So all they get is a 5th-round draft pick. So it's basically kind of a salary dump with Titus Howard. But he's been a cornerstone of the offensive line. And now he gets big-time paid. 3 years, $63 million, $45 million new money, average per year of $21 million in the new money, $43 million guaranteed. Good for him. And like I said, I had exclusive conversation with Titus Howard. And to recap what he said to me, I wasn't surprised. We talked on the phone this morning. They're trying to get younger and pay some guys. Who does that mean? Will Anderson Jr. You got to pay the freight for Will. That's going to be very expensive, that undertaking. He says, I ain't mad. Kind of knew it was going to happen. So they did let go of a valuable blocker, and it won't be inexpensive to replace him. They would like to keep Ed Ingram, who they praise very heavily. Hearing from some sources, this might be a little rich for their blood to keep Ingram. So we'll see. Can they keep Ed Ingram, or do they have to look cheaper in free agency? Because I think Ingram's going to get $13 million to $15 million annually. Zion Johnson, they're talking about him getting $16 million. It is not cheap to get a guard under contract when they're on their second deal and they're in their prime, like Ed, who revitalized his career last season with the Texans. So the legacy of Titus Howard here, good Brian Gaine draft pick, one of the ones that he did hit on, first rounder from Alabama State. And he'll be 30 in May. He's still got a lot of football left in him. Started at right tackle, right guard, and left guard last season. The good soldier would play anywhere they asked him to his credit. Texans pass protection under Cole Popovich, the offensive line coach, run game coordinator, it got better. C.J. Stroud was only sacked 23 times, a career low. Now for C.J., who's very close to Titus Howard, we'll see. What does this mean going forward? What's the protection going to look like in front of him? But when in doubt, hand it off to Knuckles or Woody Marks and build respect for the play action. I'm hearing no movement on extensions. Dalton Schultz, Azeez Al-Shire right now. I expect this to be the week that they get their books in order with compliance with the salary cap. So restructure. That's what I expect to happen. So he leaves here with a legacy for versatility, willingness to play any position, and community involvement. And as Titus told me, I just appreciate the support over the last 7 years. I'll always be a Texan forever. He tends to keep a home here in Houston, obviously while playing for the Cleveland Browns. So wants to still be involved in the community and appreciates everybody, likes all the kind words. He's hearing from you guys. He heard the good stuff and the bad stuff. And yeah, I think his relationship with the fans is worth spending a moment on, because this was a guy that was in the community, that was a good guy, did it the right way, and he has all my respect. I appreciate the relationship that we built, and if you had to criticize the line, he would understand that, as long as it's fair criticism. But yeah, I think Titus, as far as I'm concerned, just a great guy. He says he's excited to go to Cleveland, turn the city up, help change the program, win some games. We'll see. They've been losing a lot. He has a close relationship, blocked for Deshaun. He might be playing with Deshaun again. That's a very real possibility that he will be playing possibly with Deshaun. I heard they're going to give Deshaun a shot. So we'll see how that goes. So they will now have something of a 1A running back situation, but Montgomery's the guy. Yeah, and instead of going about Kenneth Walker III, who the Texans were going to make a run at, they decided to pivot to Montgomery. And this is shades of how Nick Caserio operated with Joe Mixon. Remember, he was in the Saquon Barkley sweepstakes, but he did bow out of it. He was outbid. And I think rather than repeat that scenario, in a way he did repeat the scenario, but he didn't go through the exercise of, let me negotiate when the legal tampering period starts. No, he struck fast and decisively. And I respect that. That's the thing is, if you like this player, go get him. Don't wait. So what has he done? He's got a new starting running back, and he's got to roll those sleeves up on the offensive line. So now they're going to save $8 million on Mixon. Some of that money goes to Montgomery. You're just moving money around. So in terms of draft capital, they lost some with this trade. But the Texans, they were extremely open and introspective about the need to improve the running game. They averaged 3.9 yards per carry last season. They're 29th out of the 32 teams. They only had 9 rushing touchdowns. That's 31st. So that's bad. And they have to now overhaul this offensive line in the vision of Nick Caserio, DeMeco Ryans, and Cole Popovich. But like Scruggs, he had not lived up to expectations. Same thing with Blake Fisher. I've had people ask me today, well, is it Blake Fisher's now the right tackle? Maybe now. I heard they want Trent Brown back. We'll see. I think Trent could be back as the swing tackle. And we'll see if they are willing to pay the freight. For Braden Smith, I heard they have some level of interest in Braden, and he's going to do well. Jawan Taylor is hitting free agency. I don't know if that Jawan Taylor, I don't think he played particularly well for the Chiefs. I would be more of a proponent of Braden Smith. But they intend to bolster this offensive line in a two-pronged effort. So the way they'll do that is by looking at the draft and looking at free agency. Free agency can't be the only way that you improve your team. It's got to be part of the equation. We talk about roster building and trying to build a quality roster. Like I said last night, you build your foundation up front. You need a door. You need the bricks of your home. However you build your home, you got to start up front with the line. So you look at everything they're doing in terms of offensive line. I mean, they were in these meetings. They don't do that for their health. So Vega Ioane from Penn State, real physical guard. I think he's going to be gone, but maybe they could move up if he was to slide in the draft. So he did meet with the Texans. They like Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon, another guard. I think he would be there in the second round at 38th overall. And at one point he played at USC with Woody Marks and likes him a lot. So guy that transferred, trying to move up in competition and had All-American year. He can start at either guard spot, and I think that he's someone that the Texans should think about quite a bit. I'm not sure about Caden Proctor from Alabama. The weight is a concern, but he did meet with the Texans, and that's good. They like a couple of other linemen. Blake Miller from Clemson, very good player. Very steady lineman. I think that he's a pretty good athlete, and I think he's someone that, of course they met with him, but someone that they could think about. Same thing with Max Ianachor, who's gigantic and had a great combine for testing, and someone that I thought did very well at the Senior Bowl, watching the tape there. Someone else that's on their list. Same thing with a big guy like Monroe Freeling from Georgia, and also Caleb Lomu from Utah. Some people have included him in some mock drafts, but it's a little bit of a projection to have him. And they have some flexibility, but yeah, he also met with the Texans. And, Texans, are a team that likes Jennings Dunker a lot. Who doesn't like Jennings Dunker? And I think that, I don't know if he's a first round pick. I'm sure he's gone in the second round. He's a day, 2 pick in that sense to me. But I think that he's going to play guard, tough guy, good athlete, big eater, as he said, all about Culvers, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to see what happens with that. But, looking at the Texans and kind of where they go forward, it's going to be a lot of new guys. It's going to be a lot of change. It's going to be different, and we'll see. They've got to make some great decisions. They got to get this stuff right. Get it right, fix the line, and get to a point where you can take some pressure off of C.J. Stroud. Easiest way to do that. Better offensive line, better running game, and then what happens? Guys like Nico Collins, they're unlocked more. You're able to do things. C.J. Stroud starts having some fun again. And I think that's the key. Sometimes change can be good. I mean, they changed the line a lot last year. And they built a good camaraderie in the room. I don't know who's going to be the leader. Who's going to be that guy in terms of replacing a Titus Howard? Who's the vet? That's a question I have. If they bring back Ed Ingram, I could see Ed having some leadership qualities. But this is an intangible. That's part of the locker room. So I'm in the locker room. I'm talking to guys. I'm hearing things about these kind of conversations. And it's very interesting to kind of monitor all these things. Laremy Tunsil, maybe they didn't like, some things with Laramie. Supreme talent, but very expensive, and wanted to get paid again. Now the Commanders, they're up to plate. They're going to have to pay Laramie. Titus Howard got paid. And a lot of this game is economics. It's not only about football. Of course, it hasn't been that way for a long time. It's about a combination of the right football move and the right money move. So with Montgomery, a good money move and a pretty good football player. With Titus Howard, shed some money there. That helps them. But only about $4 million in cap savings because of all the dead money from the previous restructures. So you get that done and you move on to the next thing. So looking at where they're at as a team now, it's going to be very interesting, very instructive to see. How do you see your roster? And Nick Caserio, he was a little defensive at the combine about the state of the offense and how he felt about things. That's fine. He doesn't have to go up there and, pour out his heart about, the offense is bad. He's not going to do that. That's just not realistic. But actions speak loudest, right? Not words. And the action they took today says, we're not messing around. We're getting a running back, and we're going to get, ourselves in a position financially to try to rebuild, reshape the offensive line. This is a very significant day in the Texans offseason for the franchise. And, of course, we'll be bringing it all to you here on the channel and, of course, at KPRC2 and www.click2houston.com. And thanks, everyone, for watching, liking, and subscribing. Also, the people that hype the channel, 32,000. I'll be planning a chat very soon. I'm a little busy today, so today just a video for now with everything. And next moves, see what the next steps are. But things we anticipate on the agenda. Cutting Joe Mixon by the start of the league year. Also, salary cap restructures. So we're watching for that. And we'll see if they get anything done as far as, someone being an extension rather than a restructure. So Aziz Al-Shire, someone to keep an eye on. We'll see how they go. It's not an inexpensive undertaking. It costs money. One of the top off-the-ball linebackers in the NFL. Pro Bowl guy last year. Seems like he's just getting better. So the Texans very much value him, and we'll see what they do. But I think they're going to be, bidding on some of these offensive linemen, and we'll see what's real. One thing to note, guys, at the scouting combine, a lot of people are playing their cards close to the vest, but you do hear some of the stuff that is possible. This is the week when people talk serious and talk turkey, especially next Monday when the legal tampering period starts. So I'm expecting a lot of teams to re-sign their own guys with the surplus of salary cap space. And the Texans, they're not worried about their cap situation. They'll get it fixed. All right, guys, thanks. I look forward to our next conversation, and we'll talk soon.
He's a good kid. He's got a good attitude. He's talked to D'Amico here a little bit after the season. So, I think the big thing is, we can reflect on what happened in the 25 season. So now we're focused on 26. And in the end, it's about improvement and trying to put together the 26 team. I don't think there's any concern whatsoever. So, CJ's played a lot of good football. Glad he's a quarterback. Like I answered earlier, he's not going anywhere. So, I think everybody's focus will be on the offseason, is trying to figure out what they can do to become a better football player.
Do you think there needs to be, you said that you and D'Amico have never worried about the offense. Do you feel like this needs to be the time where maybe y'all do kind of worry about the offense and go heavy on offense in the offseason?
Try to put together a real good football team. So I don't think we've said we're not worried about the offense. So how you put a team together, what are your options? What are your alternatives? What do you feel makes the most sense? Last I checked, we got a lot of good football players on the offensive side of football. I think Nico Collins has been one of the best receivers in the league for how many years now. So we had a good quarterback, got a good receiver. Dalton Schultz had his best season. I think he broke their franchise record for receptions in a year. Unless I missed that. So we got good players. We're always going to try to add good players. So try to build a good football team for 26 season that gives us a chance to go out there and be competitive on a weekly basis. So that's not going to change.
Can you decide on whether you will pick up a defensive with CJ Stroud and Will Anderson?
Yeah, we're talking through some of that right now. I don't think there's any particular timetable on that, so we'll kind of handle it when we feel is necessary.
When it comes to the coaching staff, you guys haven't had mass changes on the coaching staff really at all. What kind of went into the decision to kind of keep most things together on offense after maybe an offensive year where there was some room for improvement?
Yeah, after the season, we go through, D'Amico sits down, kind of spends time with the coaches, talks through some different things, and we kind of look at everything and, what do we feel makes the most sense. So I think anytime you have a certain level of continuity from one year to the next, hopefully it helps everybody. Now, we're not going to just stand still and stay status quo. You want to see some improvement. So that's the offseason is for. So, for the most part, the group that's here has worked together now. So go through the offseason. Makes going through the cut-ups a lot easier, and then kind of you're thinking about team building or some of the things schematically you want to do a little bit differently. we're a lot further ahead than we were probably this time last year. So again, in the end, the offseason is about trying to improve, trying to take our program from where it is and continue to put the building blocks in place. I mean, we're a proud program we've established. We've been as consistent a team as any in the last 3 years of the league. We know there's more in front of us. We're not going to sit on our ass and just be satisfied with where we are. Try to make some improvements and see if we can just keep pressing forward.
Nick, you guys have a track record of drafting, developing, and when guys earn it, you'll reward them, like Derek Stingley Jr., Nico Collins. How much does Will Anderson Jr. fall into that kind of archetype where he's done what you guys hoped for, the vision you had from when you picked him, and eventually, when the time is right, maybe you do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, when the timing is appropriate, then we'll look at those particular situations. Will is a good player. He's done a lot of good things for his program, so he's improved from when we drafted him to where he is now. So kind of take it one day at a time and figure out what makes the most sense moving forward.
Being here at the
how do you kind of overall evaluate just C.J. Stroud in full totality and not overanalyze just the last couple of years? And what do you see for his future?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to Joe and his representative, so honestly, it's day to day. So like we've had conversations, trying to get a little bit more information. I think he had a surgery here this off season in some capacity, so trying to get some follow-up after that. So again, I've said this multiple times. I'm not trying to be evasive. It's a moving target, so we'll kind of see what the availability is going to be, what the prognosis is for the season, and then ultimately try to figure out like what makes sense for everybody involved.
When did y'all know about the possibility of Joe missing some time?
We knew it would probably, last spring to the summer, probably a chance he was going to miss a period of time. Honestly, Landry, I don't think we knew the extent of how long it was going to be. It was touch and go. So, there was, I'm not trying to create any problems. It was just a moving target. So we were just trying to figure out, all right, where are we in the scheme of things, and just try to, all right, what do we got to do moving forward?
Nick, is there a timetable for when you'd like to have clarity on him because of the contract and heading into March 11th?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things between now and, start of the league year, or maybe right around the league year, just try to figure out for planning whatever the result is. So, whether it's Joe or other players in a similar category. We've got, 25-ish or 20-something players that are going to be free agents. So all those conversations are pretty fluid. At some point, we're going to talk to, each player and their representatives about, where we are and kind of go from there. So
speaking of one of your players that's on the roster, and I think some people call this the silly season. There's lots of speculation, and then there recently was some about C.J. Stroud. How do you guys feel about C.J. as your quarterback, and do you call that unfounded when people speculate about a trade involving your QB1?
It's moronic. Like, we're not trading the guy. He's our quarterback. So he's going to be playing quarterback for the Houston Texans in 2026. So anything beyond that, again, like that's your world. You guys can speculate on that, but we're not trading C.J. Stroud.
Because of the uncertainty with Joe Mixon and his availability, do you feel like you all need to?
Agency right now, just kind of talking about some different options. The coaches are involved in that process, getting their evaluation. So we're here talking about their draft players, but we're also thinking about free agency as well, because that's the first thing on the calendar.
Nick, when it comes to Aziz,
go ahead.
Sam.
going back to Titus, going into the last year of his contract, just what do you make of his future with the Texans going forward?
Yeah, we got a lot of players in a similar situation, going in the last year. So just trying to figure out, all right, what does that look like moving forward? What makes the most sense? So kind of take it case by case and kind of take it one day at a time. So Titus played a lot of good football. He's been pretty invaluable relative to his position flexibility. He's been durable. So it's a good player. So we'll kind of see how it all works itself out.
Similar question with Aziz Al-Shire. Also, 1 year left, and you restructured him last year. Is that something where ideally you want to do more years, and with the level of play that you're seeing from him?
Yeah, we'll see. It's case by case and try to figure out what makes the most sense. There's a lot of different ways that you can handle cap restructures, do contract extensions. There's a lot of different forms that this all can take. So we'll look at everything and just try to do what we feel makes the most sense.
Is there any extra concern with, the way that the season ended for CJ?
Evaluation as well, evaluate how he did in 2025.
Yeah, been a good player. Won a lot of football games. Like any quarterback, the quarterback's our position to play in sports. So had some ups and downs. That's natural for the position. But overall, he's had a pretty significant impact on where we are as a program and with won, 35 games over the last 3 years. He's certainly been a big part of that. So, and he's still, I know this is kind of funny, but he's still a young player. He's only 24 years old. So, there's always room for growth and development. So, glad he's here, glad he's our quarterback, and looking forward to a productive offseason.
Being here at the Combine, what is there specific?
Well, Nick's a free agent, so we got 3 guys under contract right now. We got Woody, coming back. He had a good year. He's our leading rusher, so for a rookie, that's pretty good. Jawar Jordan's under contract. British is under contract. Dara's a free agent. Nick Chubb's a free agent. So, we only got 3 guys that are on the team currently. We're probably going to have more than 3 players on the team. So, where did that player come from? Free agency could be one mechanism. Draft could be another mechanism. Is there a trade market for somebody out there? So, that's kind of where we are for today.
Feels like you guys made some progress on the offensive line, headed towards where you wanted to go last year. Still maybe some work to be done, maybe some ability to move the ball on the ground, things like that. Where do you kind of see the offensive line, and you have some free agents that you have to go about, and maybe the potential investment there?
I think you articulated very well. Certainly made some improvements. Probably a little bit better pass protection or in the run game. Run game was a little bit up and down. So we can improve some areas in the running game, just relative to the overall offensive production will probably help us. Ed's a free agent. That's probably one of the key guys. Ed's a free agent, Trent's a free agent. Ed had a really good year. Honestly, had the best year of his career. So, that's a position we're going to probably have to evaluate and kind of see what our options are. Have some players coming back who play pretty good football. Ariante went in there and, probably played as good as any rookie tackle. So, have some good young players, have some veterans in there, have some guys that are free agents. So we're kind of working through that process right now. We'll kind of see where we end up.
Do you feel like you have to establish where Titus is going to play before you kind of put in a plan, or can you kind of keep it fluid because Titus can play multiple positions?
Yeah, in the end, we're trying to figure out, all right, what are our options? Who are the best 5 guys? They might not be here. And then once we kind of get everybody together, which is kind of how that manifests itself this past season. Like last year, we were sitting here, there's kind of a bunch of moving targets, added some players, weren't really sure what it was going to look like, and then eventually it kind of evolved into a core group, if you will. So probably going to take a bit of work to get to a similar point, but overall, that group has certainly improved. There's some more room for improvement. Cole did a really good job, does a good job coaching that group, so I'm sure we're going to be adding to that group here as we go. Go ahead, Landry.
You've talked about Patterson's role. Do you envision Jake Andrews as a starting center in the NFL?
Yeah, well, he started, however many games he started this year, so he played at a competitive level. So if we feel that we can upgrade that position, we'll look at it. I think Jake can go out there and be competitive. So, again, trying to create as much competition across the roster as possible. Jake's a good kid, got a good attitude, works really hard, he's tough, he's smart. Has familiarity with the system, he's got a year under his belt. So if we can improve whether his position or somebody else, and we'll look at that. If we can't, at least we go out there and play competitively, we feel the group that we have.
Nick, given you all have several levers where y'all could save money in salary cap space, obviously. Do you feel like that gives you all the ability to perhaps spend a little bit in free agency if you want?
Look, I think we're always going to be smart with the decisions that we make. I think what we've always tried to do is create flexibility and optionality for ourselves. And if there's an opportunity out there that makes sense, then we're going to pursue it. We've shown our ability to do that. I think the Hunter situation, going back a few years, is probably a good example. So it's always going to be case by case, and it's like, who are we talking about? What's the fit? There's a cost associated with it. Does it make sense? We're not playing fantasy football, so we're just trying to find guys that we think fit our system, and whatever the cost is, we got to weigh, okay, if we allocate resources in one area, it's probably going to come at the expense of another area.
Yeah, Ed had a great year. Honestly, he probably had the best year of his career. For the most part, he was out there. He missed a couple games there with injuries, but good kid. He's strong. He's physical. He plays violent in the running game. You saw that on tape quite a bit. Pretty good pass protection. So we're working through that process, right now. So we'll have discussion with him and his representatives, and we'll kind of see how free agency goes. But I'm glad he was here, and he's a player that we feel benefited from our program. And honestly, sometimes a change of scenery is good. Probably worked out for him and kind of worked out for us as well. But glad Ed was on the team here this year.
Thank you.